Greetings and God bless you. Welcome to the channel. Welcome. Thank you for coming in. I wanted to deliver a message on the spirit of rejection. The spirit of rejection. This is a spirit that I have dealt with for the majority of my life. And I wanted to come on and give a personal testimony about the spirit of rejection. And I'm not just coming on here just to let you in on my personal experience with the spirit of rejection, but to also get you to self-evaluate. One of the things that I am big on is self-evaluation. And this channel is all about walking in your true identity and walking in your true purpose and walking in your purpose. And in order for us to do that, we have to be able to uncover and address some behaviors in our lives that are not conducive to who we truly are. And now the thing about that is sometimes we have patterns of behaviors that we are unconscious of. We don't know where these patterns of behaviors are coming from. And so what happens is we deem them as, or we pass them off as normal, or, this is just me. But then we move forward in life and we have certain circumstances in our lives or situations or failed relationships or, just happenings in our lives that leaves us questioning, scratching our heads like we just don't understand. And these happenings can very well be due to certain situations or certain patterns of behaviors in our lives that we just don't understand. And these things can, when you don't understand, when things are happening in your life and you have a lack of understanding of what's actually going on, what these behaviors are being produced from, these things could, these things can cause depression. They can, look at the world that we're living in, people committing suicide, suicidal thoughts actually turning into the action of suicide. And so because there are things that are going on in people's lives that they're just unaware of. And if you're unaware of them or you have a lack of understanding, then you don't know how to properly deal with them, or you can't deal with them in a healthy manner. And so the whole purpose of me coming on here and just talking about the spirit of rejection, the whole purpose of me coming on here is not just to talk about the spirit of rejection, but to share but to also share, my personal experience with the spirit of rejection and what I learned from a personal perspective. I want to share with you in hopes that you would, as you're watching this video, begin to think about your own whether or not your beliefs are in alignment with my beliefs. If you're watching this video, you're going to begin certain patterns, begin to think about, or whatever comes to you as you're watching this video, think about certain patterns of behavior in your life that are, they're just not conducive to who you truly are. You're not growing from these behaviors. These behaviors are not contributing to your overall person. Is not resulting in any advancement in your life or any productivity in your life. Evaluate these behaviors, target these behaviors, even as you watch this video, because this is only one of the things that I have dealt with, the spirit of rejection. I'm just targeting that today, but there are other things as well. And so I wanted to share with you something that I, not too long ago, I actually, recently learned about my dealing with the spirit of rejection. And I talked about in a previous video, like months ago, about how my mother got an abortion when she was pregnant with me. However, God intervened and here I am. And so even though I was protected from death in that moment, there was still a seed of rejection that was planted in me. I survived death, thank God. But there was a seed of rejection planted in me, and it was at work from that point on. And so I didn't know this. I was ignorant of this. And so were the people around me. I'm sure my mother, well, not sure. She didn't. She didn't know that her child carried a spirit of rejection due to her, going to get an abortion with her. She didn't know this. And so naturally, I was ignorant. And the people around me, my family members, people who I had relationships with, came in contact with, whatever the case may be, nobody knew I dealt with a spirit of rejection, including me. And so it wasn't, and so I realized that, like I said, this is recently where I began to realize these things. I realized that I lived most of my life in survival mode. See, there's always a cause and effect. And this is why we do ourselves a disservice when we pass our unhealthy behaviors off as this is just me. Or this is what my culture does, and so this is what I do. I'm falling in line with that. Or this is what we do in our family, so I'm falling in line with that. We have to be careful of that, because like I said, my mother had no awareness that her daughter carried a seed of rejection as a result of her behavior, and naturally so. And so that's why we have to be careful of the things that we just fall in line with, or the things we just pass off as normal, things that we try to normalize. There's always a cause and effect. And so we have to evaluate, if you're seeing a certain pattern of behaviors in your life, what is the cause? Think about it like that, cause and effect. And so we should be in constant self-evaluation. Ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why do I behave like this? Why is this particular pattern in why is this pattern in my life? And so my living in survival mode hindered my ability to have healthy relationships. And so the spirit of rejection that was on my life, and me experiencing so much rejection, left me with an inability to be vulnerable and to love. And so I knew who I genuinely was, and who I was capable of being, as it related to my inability to love. I knew who I genuinely was in that aspect. But the spirit of rejection prevented me from being vulnerable. It prevented me from being open. It prevented me from being loving, all things that it takes to have a healthy relationship. And I knew, as it related to that I was a loving person. I was an affectionate person. I was a very caring and compassionate person. And so that I knew about myself. However, the spirit of rejection prevented me from showing up that way. And so genuine love was missing. And so when I showed up, dealing with the spirit of rejection, anytime when I showed up in survival mode. And so whatever you may be dealing with, evaluate when you show up, how are you showing up? Because how you're showing up may very well be why you're receiving what you're receiving. Evaluate how you're showing up. When I showed up in survival mode. I was too busy unconsciously protecting myself to love. And I say unconsciously because, like I said, I did not know that this spirit of rejection was at work. Only thing I knew to do was to protect. Cause and effect. I knew to protect. Didn't know what I was protect. I didn't know what was going on within me, but I knew I had to protect myself. And so I was too busy protecting myself to love. You can't properly love if you're too focused on protecting yourself. And so in reality, what I was living was the harvest of what I've been sowing. And this is how curses or, spirits this is how they work in our lives, and this is why they have to be addressed, acknowledged, and they have to be broken. Spirits, they're just not going to leave. Curses are just not going to break. It just doesn't happen like that. And so I designed, what I did was, because that spirit was there, I did what my flesh knew how to do, even though I wasn't consciously aware of what was actually going on. What I knew how to do with the mind that God gave me was to design a life for myself, but the life that I designed was orchestrated through the spirit of rejection. So that was a seed that I sown. And as I'm going through life, I'm reaping the harvest of that. But I had to realize that I am not the author and finisher of my life. God is. And so my life has already been written out. Your life has already been written out. And so what I tried to do unconsciously was rewrite my life. And it just didn't work. My life was already written out. Who I was already written out. But I tried to rewrite. What I did was rewrite it, and it wasn't effective. It wasn't effective. And so that's what many of us try to do, because we go through certain experiences in our lives, hurt. We go through rejection. We go through abandonment. We go through, so much trauma that is natural for us to try to protect ourselves. It's natural for us to try to protect ourselves. But what we're doing ultimately is, if there is a spirit at work, we're protecting that spirit, and we're enabling it to continue to operate in our lives. And so it continues to, like I said, I didn't want to, I was unconsciously showing up in survival mode. I didn't know, that this was at work. And so I did what I did know to do. And that was design a life for myself that I can survive. And so what I learned was to love, because the spirit prevented me from doing that. To love, you have to let go. Because if you're in survival mode, that means you're holding on. That means you're, like I just said, you're even embracing the spirit that's at work. And we got to let go. We got to let go of trying to protect ourselves. We got to let go of trying to rewrite our own stories. We have to let go. And in order to let go, you have to trust that you will not be rejected or hurt again. This is what I learned, like I said, recently. And it's not like you won't be hurt or rejected again, because as long as you're a part of this life, that's going to happen. But when you recognize it and you're aware of it, and you deal with the spirit that's in operation, the behaviors that are in operation as a result of the spirit, then you are now in a position to handle these things in a more healthy manner, versus resorting to building a life, or operating out of survival mode, out of living but not having life. And so I want to encourage you. Let me just repeat that again. To love, you have to let go. To let go, you have to trust that you will not be rejected or hurt again. We got to know that there's freedom in love. Love is also freedom. And so I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you with these words, words that I heard personally, from God, concerning the spirit of rejection. I want to encourage you with these words. It's time for you to breathe, release, walk in your freedom, Be more open, more vulnerable. Your protecting yourself is resulting in people rejecting you and hindering your ability to love with authenticity. Stop being guarded, prideful, and controlling. Breathe, release, walk in your freedom. In Jesus' name. And so I'm going to leave you with that. Remember, if you have to watch this again, watch it again, because these things, anytime you are living your life in survival mode because you are protecting yourself from something, you're not open to love. You're not open to be vulnerable. You are operating in pride. You are operating in control. And all of these mechanisms are it is our means of protecting ourselves, but it's also creates a barrier for others to be able to get in and for our lives to become what we desire for them to become. And so I'll leave you with that, and I will see you soon.